ویلکم بیک. جس طرح پروگرامس میں آپ دیکھ سکتے ہیں ڈاکٹر نعیم مشتاق از ہیئر اینڈ وی آر ریڈی فار آور نیکسٹ سیشن. Just before the beginning of the session, if the people sitting at the back can move up, because we have to show you a video and it would be better if you're sitting at the front so you can easily see it. And we have a lot of space at front. I think a lot of people are either have left or at least not here. So let's take the opportunity and sit at the front. Or maybe this whole row is empty and this whole row is empty as well this way. So if we can move.
The speaker is vegetarian, so
Yeah. Dr. Saab has just said that I'm vegetarian, so you don't need to be afraid of me. Thank you. I mean, some people can also come and sit with our friends from, at the front, and that's no problem. Aa jaiye, aap bhi aa jaiye. So when you play the video, I'll just turn off all the lights. Okay, I think we are settled now. So shall we begin? Just before beginning this session, I would like to introduce Dr. Na'im Mushtaq. Dr. Na'im Mushtaq is a young, age-wise, young PhD in comparative religion study, and his interest is, most of his interest is in Islam and Christianity, and he wrote a very nice book on interfaith dialogue. And we met him in 2009, which was an activity organized by the Diocese on Interfaith Dialogue, and we met him in Christian Studies Center. And that was the moment that we got hooked up to his sessions. And he's one of those handful of PhDs whom we really understand. Even people like me can understand what he's saying. And I was amazed when I was reading his introduction that he has written over 30 books now. And you can find a lot of his lectures on YouTube. And you can download his books from scribd.com, but Scribd is spelled is SCRIBD.com, and you can download the books from there. And also you can find him on Facebook. And I think it will be a very interesting session because we'll be talking about the present situation of Pakistan. And we have asked Dr. Saab to be interactive, and I think he will be using other facilities as well, videos. So I think it will be an interesting session. And not only for our friends from abroad, but I think for the people of Pakistan, it will be interesting as well. So I would like to welcome Dr. Na'im Mushtaq, and I think we should give him a hand of applause.
thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, thank you very much. I was told that I have to deliver a presentation on the situation of Pakistan, what is going on in Pakistan right now, and what are expectations from Pakistani government or from Pakistani people. I'd like to know that what would you like to hear today? Theoretical bookish knowledge or very painful hard realities? What are your expectations? If you could, 2 or 3 of you could let me know. Hard realities? Okay, lovely, both. The mixed combination is always good. So what I have decided that keeping the time in my mind, I'll be briefly discussing the religious extremism and terrorism, the roots, what are the roots. Then I'll move to liberal or secular extremism and terrorism. Secular extremism or terrorism is not usually discussed in Pakistan. It's not discussed in media, it's not discussed in the political gatherings, and it's not discussed in the religious gathering. But I like to point out that one of our problem, or one of the problem of Pakistan, is not only the religious extremism but also the liberal extremism. And the third, a brief discussion on political support to banned extremist and terrorist organization. And sometimes politics is not the solution to our problem. They are the part of the problem. And I like to throw some light on that. First of all, let's start with the religious extremism. If you go through the brief history analysis of the Indo-Pak Christian-Muslim dialogue, if you go to a bookshop in Anarkali, if you go to a bookshop, Christian bookshop in Pakistan, and try to find a book on Christian-Muslim dialogue written by a Pakistani or Indian scholar, whether he's a Christian or a Muslim, you'll see the mostly discussion, the topics are repetition of topics such as Quran or the Bible, which is God's word, which is the true concept, Trinity in God or oneness of God, Taslis, Fit Tawheed, or just Islamic concept of Tawheed. Is Jesus God or not? Is Muhammad true prophet of God or not? Who is the real founder of Christianity, Paul or Jesus Christ? So if you go to a Muslim bookshop and tell them that you would like to understand Christianity or you would like to understand Christian faith, please give me a book. And the book will have these kind of topics. It will try to make you a more strong believer in Islam by rejecting the Christian faith or by analyzing critically, and sometimes very critically in a negative sense, that why you should not be a Christian and you should be a Muslim. And same approach you will find in Christian books written by traditional Christian authors who were Muslims and they converted to Christianity, or they were from this land. So they have a specific mindset, and they wrote the books with this mindset, is to prove why Christianity is a true religion and Islam is not. So, but when you go and find a book on interfaith dialogue, I'm talking about polemics, but nowadays the term Mukalma Bainul Mazahib, interfaith dialogue, has the same meaning now. They are discussing the same thing by changing the title. And I'll give you, and if you look at the books written on these topics, you will find certain attitudes in all books. And what are those attitudes? Number one, we are right and they are wrong. We are superior and they are inferior. Our intentions are right and they is wrong. We are peacemakers and they are terrorists. We are believers and they are disbelievers. We are civilized and they are uncivilized. We are solution providers and they are troublemakers. We are victims and they are responsible. You will find this attitude dominating books written by Christian authors or Muslim authors. They assume that we are on the right path and we will be saved on the day of judgment. We will go to heaven and they are going to hell. So we need to save them. They have already decided who is going to hell or who is going to heaven. Now books written with this kind of attitude, normally in Islamic theology and in Christian theology, as I'll discuss later, is known as religious extremism. This is not Christian faith. This is not the basis of Christian faith. This is not the basis of Islamic faith either. This is something else, which we promote as Christian theology, Christian faith, or Muslim theology as a Muslim faith. And I'll give you the example. Now this book, this is written by Hazrat Maulana Samiul Haq. He was in Musharraf's political era. He was the Minister for Minorities Welfare, and he is the senator today. He has written a book, Salibi Dahshat Gardi or Alam Islam. In English it would say Christian Terrorism and the World of Islam. Marka Salibo Taliban, the war between Crusade, Cross and Talibans. And you'll see, it's a very interesting book anyway. This is a collection of his interviews given to different journalists in times of Talibanization and in Musharraf political era. Now, the first thing when I look at the title of the book, without reading the book, what impression do you get? Exactly right. What we say as Muslims, what we say to the Western people when they say that because of sudden terrorism in their communities, Islam is a terrorist religion and Muslims are terrorists. So what is our reply? That terrorism is terrorism, and terrorism has no religion. Islam denies such activities and we Muslims are peace loving. So when you say Muslims are terrorists and Islam is a terrorist religion, this logic is wrong. This is usually our reply. But when we present Islam to them, we are doing the same thing. If terrorism can be Christian, then terrorism can be Muslim, Islamic. Then terrorism can be Jewish. Then terrorism can be anything. So whatever he is saying is not Islamic, he is doing the same thing. And this is the book. Now on page very interesting questions. Okay. The question was asked by a Japanese journalist to Maulana Samil Haq, sir, what is fundamentalism? Can you define fundamentalism? And this is what Maulana Samil Haq said. I'll repeat the original question in Urdu, then I'll translate it in English. जनाब, बुनियाद परस्ती की आवाज़ अमेरिका की एक मन घड़त इस्तिलाह है. हर मज़हब के असूल होते हैं अक़ीदे के लिहाज से, रवायात के लिहाज से, अखलाक के लिहाज से और किरदार के लिहाज से, और हर मज़हब अपने पैरोकारों को बुनियादी असूलों के साथ वाबस्ता करता है. कुरान करीम ने और रसूल करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने मुसलमानों के लिए इस्लामी तालीमात के ज़रिए इन बुनियादी असूलों से वाबस्तगी ज़रूरी करार दी है. तो अमेरिका इसको बुनियाद परस्ती कह रहा है, हालांकि वो ख़ुद बुनियाद परस्त हैं, जबकि इनका मज़हब हवाओं में है. कोई मुदव्वन और मुरतब कुछ नहीं, लेकिन अब इनका मुहर्रफ दीन ईसाइयत का नाम जुल्म व तासुब और तमाम गैर ईसाइयों के हकूक़ को पामाल करना इनका दीन बन चुका है. तो ये है असल बुनियाद परस्ती. दिस इज़ द एक्चुअल quote from the book. Now I have tried my best to translate it. Fundamentalism is an American concocted term. Every religion has its own principles and teach its followers to observe those principles on a daily basis. The Holy Quran and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam have declared those principles to be observed strictly. So America is calling these principles fundamentalism. America itself is a fundamentalist country, and their religion, Christianity, is nothing but a compilation of baseless documents, the Holy Bible. Christianity is nothing but terrorism, cruelty, prejudice. Christianity is to abuse the human rights of all other non-Christians. This is real American fundamentalism. So let's analyze his question. What he is trying to do. Let's get your feedback. What he is trying to do. Okay. One observation. Sorry? Yes, but what is the logic in it? Let's analyze the logic.
It's a blame game.
Okay. He's blaming whom? Christians.
Christians.
Okay.
The Americans and the Americans and
Okay. In the first part of his answer, he has defined fundamentalism, which is, theoretically speaking, is accurate. If you go through the history of the fundamentalism, it started in America and then it has its own details. The second thing, he is analyzing what the America is doing or what the American foreign policy is doing, and on the basis of that analysis he is giving a fatwa against Christianity. So the logic is this: whatever America is doing or whatever is the approach of the American foreign policy advisors, the blame goes to Christianity. So my question is this, which I wrote in the book, is when you want to decide whether the Christianity is a good religion or not, you should study the Holy Bible, not the American foreign policy. because the basis of Christianity is the text of the Holy Bible, not the text of the foreign policy. If this logic which he is promoting in his book is Islamic and accurate, then let's decide about Islam on the basis of Pakistan foreign policy. Let's decide Islam on the basis of Iraq's foreign policy. You can never prove that Islam is a true religion if you decide it on the basis of different foreign policies. So whenever there is attack on Islam, we would say that if you want to understand Islam, please study Quran and Sunnah. Please study what Islam has to say. So similarly, when you want to decide whether Christianity is a good religion or not, go and study the Holy Bible. Don't blame Christianity for whatever is being done by American government. But you can imagine he is running a madrasa. He is the senator of Pakistan National Assembly right now, and Senate is the higher level of wisdom as compared to National Assembly. So you can imagine the level of and many Taliban in his book, including Mullah Umar and many, they were trained here, and many Taliban who are now in Afghanistan, they were trained in their madrasas. So you can imagine, apart from Taliban issues, the logic which he is preaching in the name of Islam, that logic is itself un-Islamic. If we apply the same logic to Islam, Islam can never be called a good religion, because we will always be looking at the Pakistani people and we will be deciding this is what Islam is, and then we will be looking at the Saudi Arabia and deciding what Islam is. Islam, these are the situations of Muslims, not Islam. So whatever you see in America, that can be called the situations of Christians there, but that may not be a Christianity. So they are trying to follow Christianity as we are trying to follow Islam, and we could be, wrong at many places. So the foundation of religion is the text of the Holy Book. The foundation of religion is not the situation of its followers. This is the main logic we have to follow. But the entire logic is being propagated, is being in their madrasas, thousands of people are being trained on this logic. So this is one example of what we call religious extremism, hating too much that you even don't follow your own religion. The second example is interesting. Now he belongs to Deoband school of thought. Now Deoband school of thought is also a Red Mosque issue. They were also the Deoband school of thought. In Karachi, Darul Uloom Karachi, they were also from the Deoband school of thought, and he also from the same school of thought. Now the second thing, very interesting, is a book written by Allama Sajid Mir. This is the book, and this book has 493 pages. Now in my Urdu presentation I have given a detailed introduction of the book, but very briefly speaking here, Allama Sajid Mir says he is from the Wahhabi school of thought, the Saudi Arab state school of thought, and he is the head of Wahhabi movement in Pakistan, funded by Saudi Arabia. So, and he has written a book, and this book is regarded as the highly authentic book, which sometimes this is being taught in this International Islamic University, Islamabad, Quaid-e-Azam University, and in Wahhabi school of thought, they regard this book as one of the finest book written on the subject. Now, Professor Sajid Mir says it took him 25 years to write this book, and he has traveled worldwide. He has gone through many Catholic universities. He has gone through the encyclopedias, Christian theology books, and after spending 25 years in research, he has produced these 500 pages. And the conclusion of those 500 pages, whatever he has discovered in the name of research, in the last 5 pages he has written conclusion. So I'll just show you the conclusion, and you'll see the quality of his 25 years spent in research. Now, in Urdu, these are the actual quotes. حقیقت یہ ہے کہ مذہبی پیشواؤں کی خرابیاں اگر محدود اور انفرادی پیمانہ پر ہوں تو اس قول کی صحت قابل تسلیم ہو سکتی ہے، لیکن جب خرابیاں ہماگیر اور انتہائی شدید نوعیت کی ہوں تو یہ لازماً عقیدے اور مذہب کی بنیادی خرابی پر دلالت کریں گی۔ اتنے بلند بانگ دعووں اور نعروں کے پس منظر میں اتنی اونچی سطح پر ایسی شدید اور ہماگیر خباثتیں جن کا مقابلہ کسی مذہب کی تاریخ نہیں کر سکتی، یقیناً مسیحی عقائد کے بعض بنیادی نقائص پر مبنی ہیں۔ اندری حالات یہ کہنا بالکل درست ہوگا کہ پاپاؤں، راہبوں اور دوسرے مسیحی پیشواؤں کا گھناؤنا کردار ان کے مذہبی نظریات اور عقائد ہی کی بگاڑ کا نتیجہ ہے۔ You got the conclusion? And in English, if I summarize it, that by looking at the disgraceful acts of popes and priests, he has concluded that Christianity is a wrong religion. So what is the conclusion here? What is the logic? Sorry?
That if the followers are wrong, actually the problem lies with religion.
In his 25 years research traveling worldwide, his logic is to study and find the evidence of corrupt Christians in Christian communities. If he found a corrupt Christian in UK, he mentioned the case study here. If he found a corrupt Christian bishop who was involved in some sort of sexual scandals, he collected the evidence data and put it here. And in 500 pages, by mentioning all these corrupt Christians, he concluded, look, these are the followers. So their character proves that Christianity is a bad religion. This is the conclusion. So my question, which I analyze in the book, that what you have done, that you have looked at the followers, and on the basis of followers act you have decided about a religion. If this approach is Islamic, and if this approach is right as per your religious standards, then let's apply this approach and logic to Islam. And when you apply this logic to Islam, this is a verse from Surah Baqarah, Surah number 2, verse number 204 and 206. And Allah is saying there are bad Muslims who use religion to spread violence in the society. If Professor Sajid Mir's approach and his conclusion and logic, according to him, if there are bad followers in a religion, that this is simply a proof that the religion itself is wrong. And the Quran is saying that there are bad Muslims in Islam. So if the existence of some bad followers makes the religion wrong, then Islam would be also a wrong religion, because there are bad, wrong Muslims in Islam. So 25 years in, he could not analyze his own logic. And his book is now regarded one of the best, finest produced. And this has been translated, and this was first written in Arabic, funded by Saudi Arabia, and now translations are in French, English, and with the official funding of Saudi Arabia, is now this book is being distributed everywhere in the world, as this is the official representation of the Saudi school of thought. Same thing. Go ahead. There is a hadith of Holy Prophet. There are many hadiths like that. Holy Prophet said, is a hadith by Mishkat and Bukhari, کہ ایک شخص کی طرف اشارہ کرتے ہوئے کہا حضور صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے کہ اس کی نمازیں ایسی ہوں گی کہ ان کو کمپیئر کریں گے جب آپ اپنی نمازیں، تو آپ کو اپنی نمازیں حقیر معلوم ہوں گی۔ اور ایک اور حدیث ہے کہ حضرت عبداللہ بن عمر سے روایت ہے کہ لوگوں پر ایک ایسا زمانہ آئے گا کہ وہ مساجد میں جمع ہوں گے اور نمازیں ادا کریں گے، لیکن ان میں سے کوئی ایک بھی مومن نہیں ہوگا۔ Holy Prophet said there will be a time when people will perform their prayers in the mosque and none of them will be Muslims, because they are performing their prayers, but in their acts they are terrorists. So if according to the logic of Professor Sajid Mir, if you find bad people in a religion, this simply means that the religion itself is wrong, because these bad people are the production of the theology. And same can be said for Islam. they are terrorist Muslims because of the theology in Islam. But we don't say that. This logic is only reserved for Christians and Jews, but we cannot apply it to Islam. So these kind of un-Islamic and stupid logical research work is being produced and spread in the name of Islam. And this is, to me, this is religious extremism. And this is the actual commandment. This is what I would suggest to a student of comparative religion, how to analyze this situation. And this advice is by Imam Ghazali. He said, یہ ضعیف العقل لوگوں کی عادت ہے کہ حق کو لوگوں کی نسبت سے پہچانتے ہیں. جس کی انٹلیکٹ ویک ہو وہ یہ کام کرتا ہے کہ پہلے لوگوں کو اسٹڈی کرے گا and then on the basis of that he will decide about the religion. عقل مند آدمی حضرت امیر المومنین علی بن ابی طالب کی پیروی کرتا ہے. آپ نے فرمایا کہ حق اور راستی آدمیوں سے نہیں پہچانی جاتی, پہلے تم حق کو پہچانو پھر اہل حق کو بھی پہچان لو گے. تو امام غزالی said, if you want to decide about a religion, try to study the text, the book, the teachings, and then you will see who is a genuine follower and who is not. By studying people, deciding about the religion is a wrong approach. You should study the religion first, and in the lights of teaching, in the light of the text of the Holy Bible or Holy Quran, you will automatically come to the conclusion whether he is a real follower of Jesus Christ or not, whether he is a real follower of Holy Prophet Muhammad or not. Keeping an eye on the people and then on the basis of their actions deciding about the religion is absolutely a wrong approach, and this is not approved in Islam, and this is also not approved in Christianity. An interesting thing is what Maulana Samir Haq and Sajid Mir, what they are telling us, look, they are bad Christians, and that is why Christianity is a bad religion. But when we say go back to the text, so the Jesus will say, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you, away from me, you evildoers. Now one of these evildoers, if they met Allama Sajid Mir or Professor Samir Haq, you cannot blame Christ or Christianity for that, because Christ said it in his book. Same, woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are. So Christ said it, that there will be bad Christians and there will be consequences on the day of judgment. If some of these bad Christians met Allama Sajid Mir or Professor Samir Haq, you cannot blame Christianity for that. This is your own production. This logic is your own production. This is not in the Holy Book. Now, this is a very brief presentation of my at least 2 or 3 hours presentation on what is liberal extremism. Now, you will see if the challenge for you and me to understand liberal extremism, that instead of focusing on the people, let's go back to the original books. If you want to be a good Christian, you don't have to study Islam or study Muslims, you have to study Holy Bible. And if you want to be a good Muslim, you have to study Quran and Sunnah. To become a good Christian, you don't have to reject Islam and Muslims. This is not a part of one of the article of faith. To become a good Christian, you have to believe in what Christ said, and you have to practice what he advised. And same is with Islam. So I think liberal extremism is there when we ignore the original teaching and start focusing on people. And this is where the liberal extremism, religious extremism come into practice. Now, a brief understanding of the liberal extremism and terrorism. And the problem for the governments, how we get rid of this liberal extremism. So the politicians, they are also thinking how to run the government and how to run, or in other words, how to remove liberal political religious extremism from Pakistan. What is the solution? So one of the solution that politicians gave to the public to get rid of this religious extremism, there's a book written by Benazir Bhutto, Reconciliation, in English translation, and Urdu translation is by Jahangir Badr, Islam, Democracy and West, and Reconciliation. In chapter 1, she has discussed religious extremism, and she defended Islam, and how she defended Islam became another problem. Religious extremists, they went to the one end, and the liberal extremism, they adopted the second approach. And what is the so we'll understand what is liberal extremism by going through this small exercise. This is a question: what it means to be a peace-loving Christian or Muslim? Okay, so here's the question. I guess we are Christians here. I'm Muslim, the two other Muslims, rest of us are Christians. So question for you: keeping the interfaith dialogue or peace and harmony in mind, you tell me, keeping the Christian theology in mind, on the day of judgment, will I be saved as a Muslim or not? Will I go to heaven or hell? Yeah, we need the mic. This is the question number 1 for the Christian audience, that I, as a speaker, I'm a Muslim. So you tell me where I'm going when I die as a Muslim. Will I be saved on the day of judgment or not? And the second question will be for the Muslims, and I'll represent that one. You as a Christian, when you die, where will you be going on the day of judgment? Will you be saved or not? So let's start with the Christian understanding.
We are already saved. We believe that we are already saved. So we are not waiting for the day of judgment.
No. Let me repeat the question to avoid confusion. You as a Christian, keeping the Christian theology in mind, you tell me, if I die as a Muslim, I don't believe in Christianity or in a Christian faith. If I die as a Muslim, will I be saved on the day of judgment? As you will be saved according to your theology. No, one question, no.
I think yes. You will be judged according to your faith.
Okay, give one by one, so let's everyone here.
I think it is God's business, and we take in our own hands and decide where to go.
Okay.
God decides to go.
Okay. This is a religious political statement, could be. This is one point of view anyway. This point of view does exist. So.
Thank you very much. My understanding and my response to your question is that I agree with my brother there that at the end of the day, it is God who happens. But if you ask me about my faith, the Bible that I read say that unless you believe in Jesus, then you are outside. But that kind of teaching needs to be explained further in terms of what exactly does that mean. Who is outside of faith? And what defines the person who is outside of faith? And so I wouldn't want really to be hard and fast about it, because otherwise before getting into the extremism.
Extremism, exactly.
What?
Yeah, please.
I wouldn't want to answer the question straight away, but I'd like to continue the conversation by saying, are you a good Muslim?
काश पाक के विषय बार में अगर हम पढ़े तो लिखा है कि जब खुदा यीशु मसीह आएगा तो ईमानदार पहली क़यामत में शरीक होंगे, और उसके आगे जाए तो दूसरी क़यामत का भी जिक्र है। दूसरी क़यामत में तमाम लोग हैं जिनका उनके अमाल के मुताबिक हिसाब होगा।
According to the actions, if I okay, needs
Just according to your faith.
needs okay. और कोई? We'll take one more. You don't have to answer, just let me know what you think.
When we read the scriptures and try to understand how Jesus dealt with people of other faith, and one of the examples we have is the Syrophoenician woman, who was a woman of other faith, the stranger who comes to Jesus for healing of her daughter. And Jesus affirmed her faith, Jesus appreciated her, Jesus healed her daughter, and also said, "Great is thy faith." So I think Jesus affirms people of other faith, and I think that people will be judged according to their acts and the good deeds that they do, and not the way we.
So if I am a good Muslim, keeping my,
If you are a good Muslim,
will I be
you are a
saved?
good human being, and you do what is expected from God, I think you will be
Say, okay, we'll go ahead with the discussion. So, but you realize few things. Number one, we are afraid to answer this question directly. We may not hurt feelings, or we may not create some sort of problem in the situation may get worse. Theologically speaking, now this is me as a Muslim, but I have read the Christian theology, and you may correct me if I'm wrong. According to the Christian faith, if I don't believe in the Christian faith and I die as a Muslim, this is what is going to happen to me. Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Second question, Acts. Salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved. Third, Corinthians. Now, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you of the gospel I preached to you, which you received and on which you have taken your stand. By this gospel you are saved, if you hold firmly to the word I preached to you, otherwise you have believed in vain. And in verse 14, and if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, so is your faith. So as far as my understanding of the Christian faith is concerned, that if you want to be saved on the day of judgment, you must believe in Christ, according to the Christian theology. This is the fundamental. So if a Muslim, if I die according to my faith and I do not believe in Jesus Christ as the requirement of the Holy Bible and the church teachings, I will not be saved. Now, it's Islamic point of view. What is Islamic point of view? If you die as a Christian, will you be saved according to Islam? So the answer is very clear. There are many verses in the Holy Quran, but I'll just select it one hadith and the explanation. The Holy Prophet said, जिसने मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की फर्मा बरदारी की, इसने अल्लाह ताला की फर्मा बरदारी की, और जिसने मोहम्मद की नाफरमानी की, इसने अल्लाह ताला की नाफरमानी की, और मोहम्मद लोगों के दरमियान फ़र्क कायम करने वाले हैं. Whoever followed Holy Prophet Muhammad will be saved, and whoever did not follow Holy Prophet Muhammad will not be saved on the day of judgment. He is the difference between right and wrong. So according to the Islamic theology, and this is the explanation of the hadith by a famous scientist of hadith, the last word is, जिसने आपकी तस्दीक की वो साहिब ईमान हो गया, और जिसने आपकी तकजीब की वो काफिर हो गया, डिसबिलीवर हो गया. तो according to the Islamic theology, if you die as a Christian and you do not believe in the Holy Quran as the book of God, and you do not believe in the prophethood of Holy Prophet Muhammad, you will not be saved. Okay, so this is the theological standpoint. Sorry, this is the theological point of view of both religions. Now, when in this situation in Pakistan, when we say, "Sir, you will not be saved," we are considered extremist and terrorist, and that is why I show you the book. What Mohtharma did in the book, I recommend you read it. She said, the same approach, same point of view that sometimes exists in the minds of Christian brothers. You only need to be a good person in life and you will be saved. Good deeds. But if good deeds are not backed by proper and good faith, those good deeds will have no value on the day of judgment. So what Mohtarma decided to present a new point of view, which I call it liberal extremism. She has written a book for the Westerners, and she's saying, according to Islam, if you are a Jew, if you are a Christian, if you are a non-Muslim, you don't have to believe in the prophethood of Holy Prophet Muhammad. You don't have to believe in the Holy Quran as the holy book. Just believe in God and do good deeds, and you will be saved on the day of judgment. So my point of view, which I present sometime in my training seminars and workshops, I say to those Christians who say, sir, you only need to have good deeds and you will be saved, I say, why don't you become Muslims tomorrow? Because you can perform the same good deed as Muslims and you will be saved. But they will never convert to Islam because they know there is something different. Something is different between Islam and Christianity. And those Muslim scholars who are promoting interfaith dialogue with the same school of thought, I advise them, I suggest them, why don't you become Christian tomorrow? Because you will be saved. All you need is good deeds. There is no value of faith. So this is liberal extremism, where you try to deny the real realities of both Islam and Christianity. Now interfaith dialogue, as it is being promoted and recommended in the society, is to develop a new third type of faith where Muslims are happy and Christians are also happy, and people who don't like Christians and Muslims, they are also happy. You got the point? So my understanding of interfaith dialogue, which I define in my book and which I also promote in here, interfaith dialogue is not about changing faiths. Interfaith dialogue is not about eliminating identity. Interfaith dialogue, to prove that you are a peace-loving Muslim and Christian, you don't have to reject your faith and say something which makes me happy. So interfaith dialogue is to protect and maintain your identity, and at the same time work with one another to improve the social circumstances, social situation of the society. Simple as that. You can help someone who is in need of financial. You can help someone through money. You can help someone through psychological motivation, psychological sympathy, and you can still maintain your identity. So, but this is the solution some politicians and some people in interfaith dialogue have developed, is to develop a new theology which Jesus never recommended, which also Muhammad never recommended. So if I say I will be saved according to my faith, and my faith says if you want to be saved you have to follow these certain steps. If you don't want to follow, it's your choice. The same choice has been given to us by the God Almighty. The same choice has been given to us by the Jesus Christ. Now this is the hard reality which we have to remember, that your being Christian is your identity. If I am also going to be saved, what it means to be a Christian then? Because I will be enjoying the same privilege and benefits as you are doing. So there are some additional benefits for being a Christian. There are some additional benefits for being a Muslim, and those additional benefits are our identity, social identity. So you cannot handle religious extremism by developing a new theology which will create a third problem in the society. Religious extremism is simply, how I define it, religious extremism is when you start focusing on the book and start focusing on the person. Most of our attachment in our life is based on our attachment with the religious personalities, not with the book. What has been said by the Pope, generally Bishop or Pope, is more good to me than the text of the Holy Bible. What has been said by a Maulvi or Mullah or Hazrat or Allama is more sacred to me than the text of the Holy Quran. text can never be replaced by any religious personality. The only authority who has the genuine authority to interpret text was the Jesus and Muhammad. And Hazrat Mujaddid Alif Sani, one of the Islamic Sufi saint, a man came to see him and said, please advise me so I can improve my social conditions, I can become a better Muslim. So he advised two things to him. He said, never try to be God in your life and never try to be prophet in your life. And the man became quite confused. He said, how it is possible that I would ever desire to become God or prophet? So what did it mean? Please explain. So he said, Mujaddid Alif Sani said, when I said never try to be God, it is the quality, or it is the God himself. Whatever he wishes, it is done. So whatever you wishes, if it is not done, never be disappointed or never be angry. Otherwise you are pretending to be God. And never try to be prophet, because it is the only prophet whoever does not believe in him or whoever does not agree with him becomes kafir, disbeliever. So in your life, if someone does not agree with your point of view, it doesn't mean he is out of Islam or he become disbeliever. You can explain your point of view and he will explain his point of view. So interfaith dialogue, keeping in mind the religious extremism and liberal extremism, is about loving your identity. And I usually give one example, that my father's name is Muhammad Mushtaq. And unfortunately, when I speak to you, you don't like my father. What I'm going to do? Just to make you happy, I'm going to announce that he is no more my father. So I'll make sure, I cannot deny that identity that I have with me. So if I want to be a good Muslim, if I want to be a good Christian, Christianity is my identity. Christ is my identity. Cross is my identity. I cannot just eliminate them from my faith just to make you happy, just to prove that I'm a peace-loving Christian. This is the wrong definition of a peace-loving Christian. Peace-loving Christian means that whatever my Christ and my Christianity has advised me to become good, I will also make sure you get the benefits of my good deeds. And same meaning is the being a good Muslim. I mean, if you are a good Muslim, your Christian brothers should enjoy your being good. But just to make one another happy, changing the theology is a new third school of thought which has never been approved by Christ and Muhammad itself. So this is what I mean. Apart from protecting ourselves from religious extremism, we also need to keep an eye on liberal extremism. And this is the second problem that we face in Pakistan. And this is what I have redefined interfaith dialogue by keeping the liberal and religious extremism. A true interfaith dialogue, what is interfaith dialogue to me, is about not preaching but sharing. A true dialogue is not about converting but serving. A true interfaith dialogue is not about winning but loving. A true interfaith dialogue is not becoming religious but spiritual. A true interfaith dialogue is not about proving that you are on the right path, but understanding, try to understand others' point of view. That may give you more strength to become a good person. A true dialogue is not about why, but why not. A true interfaith dialogue is not about confrontation, but cooperation. A true interfaith dialogue is not about fame, but peace. And most important of all, dialogue is not about becoming superior. It is about becoming human. And this is important. The history we read in the name of religion or God is not the history of God itself. It's the history of humans, and we all humans make mistakes. Whatever was done by a certain Muslim scholar or a certain Muslim ruler, we are reading his history. We are not reading the history of Islam. Certain things were done by a Christian pope or church. We are reading their history. We are not reading the history of Christianity or Christ. When we understand the difference between teaching and applications, we will be clear enough to understand where the problem lies. This is the main thing. And I'll conclude my presentation by suggesting few steps. Number one, as I said earlier, traditionally we are just busy with one another on few topics like Quran and the Bible, what is right, what is wrong. I'll suggest some new topics to develop mutual understanding and love between the both communities. As I always said to my Christian friends, try these topics. These new topics are the combination of management and leadership concepts with religious theology. For example, stress management in Islam and Christianity, how we both Muslims and Christian can sit together and find a way to manage our daily stress, because sometimes this stress, when we inject this stress in religious theology, the religious extremism comes out. And the goal setting, how we can help one another achieve each other's goals socially, economically. In my company where I work, I usually say the goal of the Christian in my organization is to help a Muslim to become a better Muslim. Not to convert him to Christian, but to help him become a better Muslim. And the goal of the Muslim is to help his Christian brother to become a better Christian. Let's help one another become a better person in our own faith. Once we are better in our own faith, we can more easily see the beauty and the blessing of other faiths playing a role in our life. And time management in Islam and Christianity, stress management in Islam and Christianity, motivation theories in Islam and Christianity. Instead of teaching our young generation just the theology, we teach them how to use and implement theology in our society, in our life. This is only possible when we can add management and leadership concepts, modern leadership and management concepts in our religious education. And second step is to organize as many as possible these interfaith meetings. And please be sure that person you are inviting to speak on interfaith dialogue has an interfaith background. And there are people who are newly developed in interfaith and they would love to speak on interfaith dialogue. Sometimes in my organization, where I see that some political parties, they are planning an interfaith session and meetings, they are inviting a political person to address those meetings, as a political representative is much more intelligent than a bishop and a mullah. When they are political representatives, they may be expert in their political agendas, but they cannot represent religion. Religion must be represented by the religious authority because they have a better sense of religion. And the political parties and the political representatives, they need to join hands. But we may have to make sure the leadership that we are exercising in those meetings is with us. We are in a leading role. And third thing, that we need to promote the conscious that the problem of Pakistan is not religion. The problem of Pakistan is not the church. The problem of Pakistan is not Christianity. The problem of Pakistan is not Islam, and the problem of Pakistan is not the religious mullah. Or the problem of Pakistan is the politics, as I see it as a humble student of comparative religion. Sometimes these, just like there are bad people in Christianity who would love to create an issue to maintain their leadership in the church or maintain their leadership in the society. Same people are in Islamic communities. They would love to maintain Talibanization and political issues in Pakistan so they can be on demand by the governments. Similarly, these kind of people are there in politics. So we have to make sure we are very well aware of those politicians who use Christian representations and Islamic representation to create clash, and so that they can maintain as the solution providers. You see, most of the funding that government gets to resolve our issue, your and my common issues, that funding never reaches us. It's gone somewhere else. The problem, as I see as a humble student of comparative religion, the problem of Christian community is the leadership. Christian leadership. The problem of the Muslim communities Pakistan is the leadership. We need to produce more good leaders in our community, especially in young generation, and that is only possible when we teach them the Bible, and also we teach them how to apply biblical teaching in life. And application of biblical teaching or Islamic teaching is only possible or maybe more efficient when we apply management and leadership concepts. In my YouTube channel you will see lectures on stress management in Quran, and I also quoted a verse from in our previous session here, that one of the best verse in the Holy Bible on personal development, self-help psychology, and I mentioned that verse from the Holy Bible. Instead of interpreting the biblical text in a religious manner, why not try to understand the Holy Bible from the management and leadership point of view? Why not try to understand Jesus Christ as the CEO of his own mission, how he motivated his people, how he motivated his team and managed his team, and there was the whole society was against him. Why not try to get some application lessons from the life of Jesus Christ? Learning theology is good, but learning theology is step one. Applying that theology in life is more important. So application of those areas must be addressed, where I see in most of the madrasas in Muslim communities, they will teach you what Islam is, but they will never teach you how to practice Islam. Similarly, they will teach you what Christianity is, but they may not teach you how to apply that faith in practical life situations. That's why as I try to inject modern leadership and management concepts and there are many good books on leadership. Zig Ziglar is there, Jim Rohn is there, Anthony Robbins is there. People in secular life and in corporate sector, management sector, they are applying those principles there. The only thing is this: when you sell this psychology on the basis of money to the corporations, they don't like the word religion. But when you analyze that psychology, you will find it in the Bible, and you will also find it in the Holy Quran. And I have in my book, in Islam, Christianity, the English version is under process. It will be published this year sometime. I have taken the biblical passage and interpret those passages from a leadership and management point of view. That if a Muslim reads the Holy Bible, he can also get benefit in life. If a Christian brother wants to read the Holy Quran and wants to get some guidelines, he can also get it. So we have a lot in common. Our differences are our identity, and I'm not saying to remove the differences. We must respect our differences. The Christian brother must respect the difference of a Muslim faith, and Muslim brother must respect the difference of Christian faith. But we can join hands based on our similarities, and we have a lot of similarities as compared to other religions. Use those similarities to promote love, peace and harmony, and put those similarities in your curriculum. In all the madrasas of Pakistan, and just by the way, this book is not available in the market right now. My publisher has told me that he cannot publish it anymore, because I have mentioned the names of those scholars who are considered to be genuine scholars in Pakistan to promote peace, but what they have written in their books, just 2 examples I gave them, he has threat from those school of thoughts that not to publish those books. But this entire book is now on Scribd, free of downloading. And what I'm saying, this is the first book in the history of Urdu language. This is the first book in the history of Indian Pakistani subcontinent, and this is the first book in the history of Arabic language. But I've done it. The reason I've done it, and this is the first book where I never got any fatwa from any Christian priest that you have misinterpreted my holy book, because I tried to interpret the holy book, the Holy Bible, as a Christian. I became a Christian when I was reading the Holy Bible. I became a Muslim when I was reading the Holy Quran. And I proved the point that if your intentions are right, you can still write on these topics and still get respect. I got a lot of letters of praise from the Catholic Naqib and from many my Christian friends, Father Emmanuel Asi and many others. And I also got the letters from hardcore mullahs for writing this book. So if your intentions are right and your understanding is right, you can still maintain the balance. But the only possible way to get balance in life is to follow the text, not the mullah. You try to, if you read the Holy Bible directly, you will get guidance still today from Jesus Christ directly. This is, I got it, so I wrote it here. And if you directly read the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of Holy Prophet Muhammad, you will still get guidance. The beauty of Christianity and Islam is that Christ is still connected with a Christian if that Christian is not connected somewhere else. And Muhammad is still connected with a Muslim if that Muslim is not connected somewhere else. They both need our attention. Once we request for connections, the connection is there. And once you establish that connection and put that connection in writing, if you go to Christian bookshop, tell them you want to get a book on interfaith dialogue that is written keeping the situation of Pakistan, you won't get it. Same situation is with Islamic bookshops. We are busy proving who will go to heaven or go to hell. But we are not focusing our problems. One of the similar concept in Islam and Christianity is, which I mentioned here in detail, and in my previous YouTube videos you can see it. The best way to get the closeness and nearness of Allah, the best way to be connected with Christ and Muhammad is to help one another, is to share the pain and suffering of another human being, regardless of his faith, color and creed. If you share the pain and suffering of, as in the Gospel of Luke on the Day of Judgment, that I was hungry, you did not give me the food, I was thirsty, you gave. The same quotation is in Hadith, and what I derived from that one, if you want to be connected with God and Christ, try to find a person in pain and share his pain and suffering and try to help his quality of his, try to improve the quality of that man, whether he is a Christian or not. Through that process of suffering, through that process of sharing and helping that person improve the quality of life, in that process you will find the connection, and the connection is there. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your patience, and if there is any questions.
This is Dr. Naeem Mushtaq, and I missed his first part, but I hope you enjoyed what he said, and I hope it was helpful. He has been on this campus a number of times now, and he's well aware of some of us here. I'm grateful to him for coming and sharing his thoughts with us. We have to go to the National Council of Churches. We have gone over time, and if there is something which you would really want to ask him, there is an opportunity, but I would request you and request Dr. Mushtaq not to give long answers or no long questions, please.
Not a very long question that I want to ask. What connection was there between this interfaith dialogue and the latter part of your presentation? Where was that connection? I failed to see that connection of the American intervention. I didn't see the connection of the interfaith dialogue, the Christian-Muslim presentation, and then binding it up with the entire propaganda film that you showed. How did that connect?
Briefly speaking, I was discussing the situation of Pakistan. So I mentioned 3 areas. Number 1 is the religious extremism, number 2 the liberal extremism, and third one was the political support to some of the banned organizations. The political support to some of the banned organizations has a background reference, because the problem of Pakistan sometimes is not the religious, it's the political, and Talibanization and the Afghan war is a part of it.
I didn't find it relevant.
Well, is there any other question? Ji, Vishnu.
There are so many efforts made to eliminate the Talibans, but day by day they are increasing. Is there any cause you can explain it?
اردو میں پوچھ لیں آپ سوال.
So सवाल ये है कि इतनी कोशिशें हुई हैं तालिबान को ख़त्म करने की, लेकिन डे बाई डे वो ज़्यादा होते जाते हैं, बढ़ रहे हैं, वो डेवलप होते हैं।
मेरा हम्बल ऑब्जर्वेशन ये है कि गवर्नमेंट itself जो है वो सिंसियर नहीं है तालिबानाइजेशन को खत्म करने के लिए. दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम. जिस दिन गवर्नमेंट सिंसियर खत्म करने के डिसाइड कर लेगी उस दिन ये 1 महीने में खत्म हो जाएगी. अब इसकी ब्रीफली मिसाल मैं दे देता हूँ इमरान खान कि अभी वो नया एज अ लीडर प्रमोट हो रहा है हमारी सोसाइटी में. उसने रिसेंटली बुक लिखी है पाकिस्तान, जो भी मार्केट में अवेलेबल है, आप वो जरूर पढ़ें. एक ऐसा आदमी जो तालिबानाइजेशन और तालिबान की टेररिस्ट एक्टिविटीज को पॉलिटिकली सपोर्ट भी करता हो और जिसको अभी गवर्नमेंट जो एजेंसीज मैं कहूँगा जो सीक्रेट एजेंसीज हैं उसको एक नेक्स्ट लीडरशिप ऑप्शन के तौर पर प्रमोट भी कर रही हूँ. तो मेरा ये ख्याल है कि तालिबानाइजेशन पाकिस्तान से ख़त्म हो सकती है बशर्ते गवर्नमेंट के जो हल्के हैं इसको ख़त्म करने के लिए संजीदगी के साथ ईमानदारी के साथ काम.
अच्छा, बस ये 2 सवाल और इसके बाद कोई नहीं. जी पादरी साहब.
मेरा सवाल ये, मैं साथ ही कह रहा हूँ कि वो तालिबानाइजेशन खत्म हो गई तो फंडिंग कहाँ से आएगी?
एग्जैक्टली वही बात है.
नहीं, मैं इसमें ऐड करना चाह रहा हूँ आपके कमेंट में कि हमने पॉलिटिकल सेक्शन की बात की है. क्या हम उन फोर्सेस को भी इसमें शामिल करना चाहेंगे जो बिहाइंड है, नजर नहीं हिडन है, लेकिन सपोर्ट कर रही हैं, जो बहुत बड़ी ताकत है, जो पॉलिटिकल लोगों को भी कंट्रोल करती है. आपने अब अपनी पूरी स्पीच में अब जिक्र किया है एजेंसीज का, जो एजेंसीज का रोल है पाकिस्तान में वो बहुत भयानक है. मैं एग्री विद यू कि आप प्रधानमंत्री की बात कर रहे हैं उसको प्रमोट किया जा रहा है.
मैं आपको इसमें मैं अपना बता सकता हूँ कि मैंने क्या किया था. जब मैं परेशान होता था ये सारी चीज़ें देख के, तो मैंने क्या किया, तो मैंने 2 चीज़ें सोची. एक तो ये सोचा कि मेरी अपनी ज़िंदगी पर किसी एजेंसी का इख्तियार नहीं, नंबर 1. दूसरी चीज़ मैंने कंक्लूड ये की कि मैं अपने घर का सरबराह हूँ, मेरे घर के अंदर किसी एजेंसी का मतलब नहीं. फिर मैंने बाइबल मुक़द्दस की वायत के मुताबिक अगर कोई शख्स चर्च में लीडर होना चाहता है तो उसकी इब्तिदा अपने घर से करें. तो मैंने बारिश के कतरे के हवाले से मैंने खुद से किताब लिखी और मार्केट में देखी. अपने घर में मैंने ये मेक श्योर किया कि मेरे घर से कोई तालिबान निकल के पैदा ना हो और या मेरी तरबियत से कोई तालिबान ना हो. तो हमारी एक प्रॉब्लम ये भी है कि हम अपनी प्रॉब्लम्स को छोड़ के हर एक की प्रॉब्लम में हो. हम एजेंसियों को भूल रहे हैं, गवर्नमेंट को भूल रहे हैं. लेट्स डिसाइड कि हम अपनी ज़िंदगी के खुद जिम्मेदार हैं, अपने हल्का अहबाब के खुद जिम्मेदार हैं और अपने घर के जिम्मेदार हैं. और जो चर्च के हैं नुमाइंदे वो अपनी चर्च की कम्युनिटी के एटलीस्ट जिम्मेदार हैं. द बेस्ट थिंग जो मैंने डिसाइड की, क्योंकि अगर मैं एजेंसी को पहले सोचता तो मेरा दायरा इख्तियार ही नहीं होता. मैं सोच के परेशान ज़रूर हो सकता था, कर कुछ नहीं सकता. तो मैंने पहले तो ये डिसाइड किया कि मेरे दायरा इख्तियार में क्या चीज़ें आती हैं. तो आप में से हर आदमी अगर अपना दायरा इख्तियार स्टडी करे और देखे कई चीज़ें ऐसी हैं जो इग्नोर हो रही, वो सारी तवज्जो आप दूसरों को दे रहे हैं. तो अगर उस पर दें तो आपका एक है दायरा इख्तियार और दायरा इन्फ्लुएंस, सर्कल ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस. तो जब आप अपने दायरा इख्तियार पे तवज्जो देंगे तो आपके सर्कल ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस में तो बेहतरी आ जाएगी ना. तो ये छोटी छोटी चीज़ें जब मिलकर बनेगी तो ये लंबा सफ़र है मगर ये पूरा करेगा.
थैंक यू वेरी मच. मेरा ख्याल अगर करनी होगी तो थोड़ा सा बाहर कर लीजिए बिकॉज क्लैश हो रहा है 2 प्रोग्राम्स का. और आई वुड लाइक टू ब्रिंग दिस सेशन टू एन एंड and want to thank Dr. Naeem Mushtaq once again. He traveled from Islamabad specially for meeting us and talking to us this afternoon. I know afternoon always is never a good session to have serious talk, but I am still very happy that most of you are here, still not all of you, and you were attentive and that means you enjoyed the discussion. Okay, brothers and sisters, we will now go to this NCCP. I would request our partners if we could all assemble in front of my house, then we will see if we have cars or we can walk or whatever we do to go to the NCCP. And even other people from other dioceses who are here outside, we will make arrangements for you to come along with us. All right, this is all what we have.